Okay, so just to tell you a couple more things about using Cortana. She's automatically set up to record every single keystroke that you make. And what that means is that every time you log in to any accounts that you have, that you access online, all of that's being recorded and sent to Microsoft servers. She also has the ability to turn on your microphone on your computer and listen to you sort of in a way as what Microsoft says, as in getting to know you better, so that she's more able to correctly listen to your voice commands if you decide to use her as your personal assistant. So anyway, just things to think about. Okay, so let's look at a timeline for Mac OS. Apple introduced its first Macintosh computer in 1984, and this system introduced the GUI, so the graphical user interface, and it was called Mac System Software. The OS X operating system was released in 2001, and with the latest version that they just released, it's called Sierra, and they got rid of the OS X and renamed it Mac OS to sort of fit in more with what they have with iOS. Okay. Okay, so again, in 1984, Mac OS became the first commercially available operating system to incorporate a graphical user interface with user-friendly point-and-click technology. The latest version, Sierra, just came out in 2016, and its biggest addition comes in the form of Siri, so Apple's digital assistant. Now you have Siri on your machine, not just on your mobile devices. Okay. Another feature is called Auto Unlock, and this allows you to unlock your Macs via your Apple Watch. To make your life easier on Apple's ecosystem, they also introduced the Universal Clipboard. So just like its name suggests, it's a common place to share URLs, which are website addresses, and to also paste text between macOS and iOS devices. Right? macOS uses the same desktop metaphors as Windows, including icons for folders and a trash can, so similar to the recycle bin that you see on Windows. And macOS is based on the Unix operating system, which is an exceptionally stable and reliable operating system. Okay. Linux. Let's talk about Linux. Linux was developed in 1991 by Linus Torvalds, okay, hence the name Linux. Some people call it Linux, but either way it works. Unlike Windows and Mac, Linux does not refer to a single version, but to many distributions or distros. Linux operating system software is open source. So, to repeat something we talked about earlier, open source is software that has its source code published and made freely available to the public. So this enables anyone to copy, modify, and redistribute the code without paying any fees. Okay, so that's why there's lots of different versions of Linux. You can basically do some research, find out the one that's best for you, and once you start using Linux, you'll find, I think, that it's very user-friendly and really reliable. We use Linux in the computer labs in the CS department on campus, so if you ever want to try it out, you're welcome to come in there, and you'll see you'll be using it like a champ in no time. So the combination of an operating system and a specific processor is referred to as a computer's platform, right? Computers and other devices usually come with an OS already installed. However, with some PCs, you can specify which operating system you'd like installed when you order your device. Windows and Linux can run on most hardware being sold today, so your decision of an OS in this case is mostly a matter of price and personal preference. Apple equipment comes with Apple operating systems pre-installed. And something that you need to pay attention to is the fact that most application software is OS dependent. So what that means is you need to make sure you're getting the correct version of whatever software you happen to be buying, the correct version for the operating system you're running, because it's different if you're running Mac OS or if you're running Windows or if you're running Linux. It is definitely possible to have more than one operating system on one computer. Okay, a lot of people actually do this because different operating systems offer different features. So Windows and Linux both run really well on Apple computers. And with a little bit of tweaking, it's possible to get Mac OS to run on a non-Mac PC. Hackintosh is the name given to a PC that's been modified so that Mac OS can be run on it. In Windows, you can create a separate section of your hard drive and install another operating system on it while leaving your original Windows installation alone, so it'll still be on your computer. Okay. After installing the second operating system, once you start up your machine, you're offered a choice of which operating system to use. So again, if you go to the computer labs, it's actually in the Hilton Science Building in room 281. Our machines there are what we call dual partition. They have both Windows and Linux, so you choose which operating system you want to use upon startup. Cloud-based operating systems. Operating systems now have a lot of features that are tied to cloud computers. So here's a few different examples. Using your Microsoft account, Windows 10 stores your settings and keeps track of applications that you've purchased from the Windows Store. You can store files and access them using your OneDrive account. So if you sign up with Microsoft for your OneDrive account, okay, that's using some cloud-based operating system features. Mac OS Sierra allows you to sign in with your Apple ID, which then gives you access to Apple's iCloud system. Okay? And then Google has launched the Google Chrome operating system. And the main functionality of the operating system is provided actually by accessing the web through a web browser. So if you're interested in trying out that operating system, you have to buy a Chromebook, which is a type of laptop. Okay. So here's a little picture to show you like what the operating system does. Basically, it just coordinates and directs the flow of data and information through the computer system. So if we want to look here, you can see my cursor. Here's your operating system acting like a conductor, basically. Okay. It's providing user interface so you can actually interact with your device. It's managing computer hardware and peripherals, so things like your printer or speakers. Okay. It's providing a consistent interaction between applications and the CPU. And speaking of the CPU, it's actually managing the processor, while it's also managing memory and storage. So your operating system is this big, vital piece of your machine, and without it, you cannot run your computer. Okay, so like I've said, the operating system provides a user interface that lets you interact with your computer. Okay, the first computers that were available to the public to use used something called MS-DOS, and that stands for Microsoft Disk Operating System. Okay, and this had a command-driven interface, so it looked just like this. You would come in here and type in different commands, and by typing commands, that's how you would get the computer to do what you wanted it to do. Okay, you're communicating with your computer system by typing in commands via this, what we call a command prompt when we're using Windows. Okay. So, needless to say, the command-driven interface was not a hit with the general public. People were like, this is too hard, and why do I have to learn basically a new language in order to use this computer? I don't even need to use a computer. Forget it. Okay, so the companies decided, well, we need to come up with a better user interface. So the next thing they came up with was this menu-driven interface. Okay, and in this one, you choose commands from menus. So instead of having to type in every single command, now you're able to choose them via these like drop-down menus. Okay. However, even this still wasn't easy enough for most people to use. You know, they just didn't have the desire to do this. Okay, so you can see there's file, edit, search, a lot of the same commands that we still use today. Current personal computer operating systems like Windows or Mac OS use a graphical user interface, okay, a GUI. Again, GUIs are great because they display graphics, and they use the point-and-click technology of the mouse and the cursor, so making them much more user-friendly. All right, this is what they came up with after the menu-driven interface, and they said, okay, this is going to be much better. Linux-based operating systems don't have a single default GUI interface. So instead, users are free to choose among many commercially available and free interfaces. GNOME is one example, and each of these interfaces provides a different look and feel. So unlike Windows, if you look at it, you have a glance at a screen, you can say, oh, I know that that computer is running Windows. Maybe you happen to look at someone else's computer and you could say, oh, that's definitely running Mac OS. With Linux, it's a little bit harder because it doesn't have one single look that defines it. So let's talk a little bit about processor management. Okay, when you use your computer, you're usually asking the processor to perform several different tasks at once, so that multitasking we talked about earlier. You might be printing a Word document, chatting with your friends, and watching a movie all at the same time. So although the CPU is really powerful, it still needs the operating system to arrange the execution of these activities in a systematic way. So what the OS does, it assigns a slice of its time to each activity. And then it switches back and forth among these different processes millions of times per second to make it appear that everything is happening seamlessly. If it didn't do this, we wouldn't be able to watch a movie and print at the same time without experiencing delays. Okay, so I think this is really cool to think about. What looks like it's just happening so smoothly and, you know, seamlessly, really it's just your operating system and your CPU working extremely hard in the background to make everything look nice and pretty and easy.